As long as I can remember, I've always been into video games. I would always play games with my cousins or my uncles and had really enjoyed fighting games or platformers, with one of my favorite games to this day being Tekken 3. Me and my parents would go visit, I'd take the PlayStation off to a different room and play the hell out of these games until it was time to go home. It wasn't anything crazy, but some of my favorite childhood memories are those days where I finally beat a hard level, or the sheer excitement I felt finally beating Eddie Gordo on hard mode, because that felt damn near impossible at that age. I've experienced so much life, and still those moments hold so much happiness in my mind, no matter how long ago or how insignificant the accomplishments seem today. So believe that when my parents got me my own PlayStation, I felt on top of the world. I couldn't wait to go home after school, throw on Tekken 3, and go to town with my partner in crime, Ling Xiaoyu. As Martin Luther King once said, shout out to Asian girls, let the lights dim some. Having friends come over just to throw hands, or in my room throwing hands with artificial intelligence, I was always down to throw hands because it was so fun at the time. Throughout the next couple years of me having my PlayStation, I was very obviously falling out of it. Not that video games are anything deep or mandatory in any way, but I would just get so bored. Playing the same games over and over, going to visit family and not having any kind of interest into their games. I was having the childhood equivalent of a midlife crisis. But something happened that led me to permanently loving video games, and I'd like to share that with you. At that time, two of my uncles were really into video games. One of them spent a lot of time on World of Warcraft, and I liked it a lot. It wasn't so much the game itself, because I've since realized that WoW's just not for me, but the world it took place in. I've always been skewed towards fantasy genres of books, movies, and shows, but never really put two and two together that I could get that same world in a video game. And to my luck, they had more fantasy games. More specifically, Final Fantasy games. Alongside WoW, my uncles would play Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy VII. It intrigued me why I was so into these games, because it felt like they were two parts of this dream game I want. On one hand, Tactics had a setting filled with this heavy fantasy feel. All the Moogles, the magic, chocobos, knights, anything that strikes a match with you as fantasy were there in full effect. But it also had a child's worst nightmare: strategy. It didn't seem hard at all, but I was young and only cared about action, movement, flashing colors, you get the idea. It just wasn't a game for me at the time. On the other hand, Final Fantasy VII had the exact opposite problem. The battle system looked fun and engaging. There was still strategy, of course, but it was more than a turn-based RPG. It was fun to look at with its flashy overdrives, big-ass swords, massive bosses, Tifa existing. It had everything a growing boy would want. The trade-off, however, the world building didn't interest me at the time. Sure, later in the game you do get to venture outside of Midgar and explore what the world has to offer, but I wasn't really into this futuristic, steampunk adjacent aesthetic of the sectors that you visited at the beginning of Cloud's journey. And I don't even know if that's a good way to describe it. So between these two games, I would always watch my uncles play it if it was on, but one day they switched the formula on me. I remember my uncle came down one weekend to visit. I remember walking in the room, saying hi, and almost immediately I looked at the TV and my jaw dropped. What was this game he was playing? It had everything. The fantasy aesthetics, the knights, magic creatures, the battle system, colorful skills, movement, a slim, thick brunette girl. It had everything a growing boy would want. Again! You could probably decipher by now that it was Final Fantasy IX. I've enjoyed games in the past, but never have I latched onto something like I did until this game met my eyes. My uncle let me start a new save file, and just off of the first hour or so, a little after kidnapping the princess, that's when I realized two things. I love this game, and I need this game. So which had come to no surprise. I never bought it. This isn't the first time I just didn't have a game I wanted. For example, I knew I liked Pokemon since Silver and Gold came out, but the first game I owned was way later, Pokemon Diamond, which I got the Christmas after its release. Side note, that same day I got Diamond was the first time in my life that I stayed up so late I saw the sun. I'm not really proud of that, I just thought it was funny. But anyway, skip to my birthday. I'm especially hyped because I'm finally getting an upgrade. An Xbox. Okay, just kidding, a PS2. Can you imagine, buying an Xbox? My parents said I could have two games to start out. I nod, as I am small and poor, so I can't really negotiate. I walked away with only one game, Tekken 4. This game was absolutely stunning. This was more than an upgrade. The amount of polish from Tekken 3 to Tekken 4 is insane. literally go look at cutscenes from Tekken 3 and then immediately watch one from Tekken 4. Computers are cool. I couldn't think of another game I would want, so I'm just looking around. They said 2. And I'm gonna get 2, damn it. I'm judging purely off of cover art, trying to find something interesting, and then something catches my attention. The artwork was so calm yet so alluring. A boy rises from the ocean of gorgeous clear water. A beach is in the distance, topped with ancient architecture. He looks to the sky with sword in hand, translucent and appearing as the sea incarnate. This boy is Titus, and this is the game that changed my life. Final Fantasy X. So, futuristic settings aren't my thing, I already said so, but the city of Zanarkand is a beautiful one. People dressed in this weird mix of cyberpunk and early age nomad. Machina, which is their word for machines, has grown in a way that makes it feel like magic. Like, look at this. You expect me to look at this spherical river where people play full contact water polo and think, wow, yep, engineering, amazing. No, that's magic. It has to be. You can't tell me different. As the story unfolds, you're brought 1,000 years into the future to this colorful post-apocalyptic fantasy land, and that's when I realized why I had gotten bored of my favorite games. I value more than fancy graphics, I value more than fast-paced gameplay. What I value is the stories that video games can tell. JRPGs became my favorite genre slowly but surely because of the emotional ride that this game took me on. In general, I'm very emotional with media. Like, if I'm attached enough to a movie or a show, it's not even a question. I'm going to cry if someone dies, if some cute shit happens, whatever it is. And before Final Fantasy X, I never cried for a video game. This game is 20 years old at this point, but I'm not going to talk about anything taking place at the ending. All you have to know is that this was more than being an outsider looking in. I am the player. I went on this journey with my friends. I didn't just watch their hardships, I lived it and grew with them along the way. Beating Final Fantasy X gave me something I never knew I needed. Emotion. God, that sounded so edgy. Why did I write it like that? This game isn't perfect by any means. I'm not gonna address the elephant in the room. Okay, look, that scene definitely needs context, but honestly, just watch any Final Fantasy X review and they'll explain. We're gonna move on. Final Fantasy X is still not my favorite game, but that's not really the point of the video. The experience I had playing this game allowed me to learn what I want out of games and what genres pique my interest. Ever since my adventure through Spira, I've been helplessly in love with JRPGs, and my favorite series is, surprise, Final Fantasy. This isn't going to be some weird weeaboo peer pressure kind of thing. I just wanted to share my love of this genre with you. I'd love to know what your favorite games or genres are, and if this... That's my dog. If this little essay piqued your interest, maybe give Final Fantasy X a shot and let me know what you think of it. With all that being said, here's something completely informal. Alright, so I just realized I wasn't recording the whole time. So, I hope you enjoy shitty audio quality because I have to do all of this again on my shitty USB mic. So here we are. Hi. This is my first video in several months. My previous video was the first video in several months. I think we're pretty consistent over here. We're pretty consistent on this. He doesn't miss. He doesn't miss. Yeah, so last time I was here, I was kind of in this weird limbo publicly. And like, I didn't know what I wanted to make for the channel. I watch a lot of video essays. I thought I'd give this a shot. Is not long at all. It's like 8 minutes or so. I mean, you watched it, so you probably know. But I hope you liked it. It's not going to be all video games when I do stuff like this, but I really like video games, so that'll probably be a bulk of it, and I apologize in advance. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed watching the video. I do plan to make more stuff like this in the future. Stick around if you'd be interested in hearing me talk about my life or video games or whatever the fuck else I want to talk about in that particular time. Have a good night, morning, noon, whatever it is over there, and I'll see you in the next one. I don't have an outro.